Have you ever been grateful for your imagination? One thing, imagination is one of those things we often take for granted. But I'm here to tell you what you once thought was a little thing is actually quite a big part of your life. Have you ever needed to trust your gut? Trusting your gut or intuition is a part of your life that most people not only don't listen to, but they may take for granted out of context. I have found that the power of imagination and intuition are as important as the medical treatment I receive to manage my health. I had my first operation when I was 2 days old. I also have a shunt in my head, a man-made bladder that was built when I was a few years old, and I was continuously given a number on my life expectancy. One of the times I was in the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne for just under 2 weeks having a procedure. My normal ward was full, so they put me in the burns unit. They pre-warned me, but it still didn't mentally prepare me for what I saw or I heard. Kids with welts and burn scars, and the echoing sounds of screaming when they had their dressings changed. I was in a room with 3 other kids with burns on 70 or more percent of their bodies, one of which I'd heard was a fuel-related accident. A couple of times a day, the nurses would come by to see to their dressings. I've carried the scars of those images with me into adulthood, still getting flashes of them in my mind. Mums talk to mums, as they do, but some of the stories I was overhearing were horrifying. Being a child, I wasn't too aware of the level of pain the other children were going through, as I was going through my own pain. But the screams, the burns, it was like a horror movie. This was one of the times I would escape into my imagination to go to a happy place and not a scary place is what I needed to do, because being in the burns units scared me. It was only as I got older that I'd realised what I'd been doing. My imagination was, and to this day is, my happy place. At that time, I couldn't really feel much because I was on a lot of meds. But having been to the places within the confines of my imagination early on in life enabled me to bring my imagination into my adulthood. Being in a lot of these situations, for me, required a certain level of resourcefulness. And what is imagination? By definition, it's the ability to be creative or resourceful. I had to be resourceful in the sense that I didn't have a lot of say in what I was going through. So my way of gaining any kind of control was to imagine a better reality than my actual reality was at the time. It was a defense mechanism. The law of attraction dictates that our imagination creates our reality. Your imagination is also based on your perspective. If you have an unhealthy perspective, your imagination will then go to a bad place. Having a healthy imagination means you need to have happy thoughts. If you are to lean more towards negativity, the negativity will consume your thoughts and everything around you will be negative. Focus on the positives, however, and your imagination will take you to a magical place. We think a thought, and that thought becomes a visual idea within our subconscious. When we create the idea from our visualisation, our imagination is then brought into our reality. A lot of people don't realise, but we are in our subconscious mind most of the time. Consciously, we learn. Subconsciously, we do. Once we have done something enough times that it becomes second nature, it is then stored in our subconscious, which is where our memories are located. When we understand our imagination a little better, it'll not only improve our memory, but give us more creative ways to get the job done. In my experience, having short-term memory loss, as well as somewhat of a learning disability, I've found that having my imagination has made my memory better and also helped me learn and actually retain things better. Because I no longer solely rely on my intelligence, I can get creative with it instead. When you're creative, you can come up with different ways to do things, and my life has required me to get creative at the best of times. Because I can't do things the standard way that a regular person can do them, I have to find other ways a lot of the time. Hence the creativity and imagination. From the moment I got here, you may have been using your own imagination, wondering why the wheelchair, likely creating the assumption in your own mind until you know why. It is the assumption in your own mind that is your imagination creating your own thoughts on something until you have the correct answer. I've also been using my imagination since I rolled out, wondering what stories you have been creating about me. I didn't start my life in a wheelchair. In fact, I didn't get my first wheelchair until I was 5. Before then, I primarily used crutches or a walking frame because I was too small for a wheelchair. Getting my crutches was my first little taste of independence. Even something as simple as that enabled me to create possibilities connecting my experience to my imagination. These stories of assumption in your head come from your imagination. It could be based on past and present experiences, partial truths, first impressions, or how someone looks. Our fears and insecurities a lot of the time come from a place of assumption. Before we experience something, we may or may not assume the worst. If we assume the worst, this then will create an inability to be motivated to carry out a task or idea, or even mean having a block in creativity. People assume a lot of the time simply because someone has different hair colour, maybe it's green, purple, pink, that these people are, let's say, a little bit left of centre, or not very well-rounded individuals. Maybe it's something as simple as their hair colour that makes them embrace who they are as an individual, therefore staying true to themselves. To remove the assumption you may have about why my hair is green, the colour of the heart chakra is green, and I feel that having green hair keeps my head closer to my heart, because I am someone that does wear my heart on my sleeve a lot of the time. So in a way, my green hair does represent a part of who I am as a person. I had pondered going straight-laced with this whole thing and not dyeing my hair back to green until after this event. But while I'm talking about authenticity and embracing who you are, I felt it was necessary. What I had to do then was use my own better judgment, trust my intuition and instincts, and do what I felt would be right. As a child, when it came to my health and well-being, I was given very little details about what was going to be happening at any given time. So I ended up using my gut instincts. With this, I got to know people's body language and facial expressions better. I had to know these things to be sure the people at that time in my life had my best interests at heart. A show of hands, who knows what spina bifida is? Spina bifida, for those of you that don't know, is Latin, which in English translates to split spine. It is a birth defect where a baby's spinal cord has failed to develop or close properly while still in the womb. Some symptoms may include hydrocephalus, renal failure, seizures, brain damage, learning problems, attention span, minor forms of Asperger's, gastrointestinal disorders, depression, anxiety, and orthopedic problems. There are 3 different forms of spina bifida, the first being the least severe, called occulta. Up to 40% of people don't even know they've got it. The second form, meningocele, has moderate complications, generally treated with surgery. The nerves of the spinal cord remain intact with little to no damage to the nerve pathways. The third form, myelomeningocele, the most severe form, otherwise known as open spina bifida, this is me. This meant that I was born with an opening in my lower back where the unfused portion of the spinal column allowed the spinal cord to protrude through, forming a sac enclosing the spinal elements such as the meninges, the cerebrospinal fluid, and parts of the spinal cord and nerve roots. Other complications I've had are urinary tract infections, bowel problems, depression, anxiety, issues and seizures. The effects of a common cold can be 10 times worse as well. And I also have hydrocephalus, which is excess fluid on the brain that needs a little bit of help working its way through, and that's why I have a shunt. A cold, the flu, and hay fever will affect my shunt, and I'll get headaches and migraines depending on the severity of how sick I am. My migraines can, in some instances, result in a seizure. Thankfully, I haven't had one of those in about 6 years. Until recently, most babies born with the type of spina bifida I have die shortly after birth. Intuition, much like imagination, comes from the subconscious. It is just a feeling. To trust your gut, trust your intuition, you have to first understand what the feeling is. Perhaps you're asking yourself questions. That creates doubt in your mind. A classic example is, if you really want an item and you're only working with a small budget, then you may question whether you actually need this item right now or can wait till later on when you are more financially able. This is how most people end up in credit card debt. They didn't listen to their gut instincts telling them that they shouldn't be spending money that they don't have. So how can we best heighten our awareness, and with that, our intuition and imagination? Here I will give you 5 ways to better connect with your intuition. Number 1 is recognise when it speaks to you. Number 2, meditate. Take the time out to reflect on your day, how you are feeling, and to recognise how your thoughts may be on the day that you've had. If you have questions, ask them. A lot of the time, we find ourselves afraid to speak up when we have questions. This may be connected to a fear of being judged, or even a fear that our questions may be somewhat ridiculous, so therefore we don't voice our opinion. It is okay to ask questions, because without questions, we will never find the answers that we seek. Number 4, believe in and trust yourself. Have the confidence to go with what you are feeling, and that is where the next one comes in. Number 5, setting boundaries with people. You will stay better in touch with yourself if you are not listening to what could be toxic opinions. They not always are. That may lead you up the wrong path. So setting boundaries with people is important. Now on to creating a better sense of imagination. Number 1, do nothing. Know that this does not mean be lazy. Take a moment to give your mind a much needed rest and then get back to your responsibilities. Everybody needs a brief rest because people are often too busy, and this doesn't help their mind grow creatively and can dampen your imagination. I recommend taking the time to practice visualization meditation. Number 2, read fiction. When reading fiction, these authors that create fiction can be what inspires you to better get in touch with your own imagination through creativity. Number 3, listen to music without lyrics. Maybe it's classical music, or maybe some form of relaxation music. This can clear your mind of what is and help you make up your own mind on what you feel the music is about. It will create your own perspective on the music. You will form your own ideas. It will create your own perspectives on the music. You'll form your own ideas, therefore your imagination will be used. In the sense that you will be creating your own idea of what the music is about. Number 4, visual art forms. Don't try to copy something you see, just draw. Now, to just pick up a pencil or even a pen and just scribble, maybe in an abstract way, will connect your imagination onto a piece of paper, and you'll be creating something almost even without knowing what you are creating. Number 5, write for fun. Just put pen to paper and write purely because you enjoy writing. This can be a very good way to create a piece of writing that is your own, therefore again, using your imagination by creating something. Maybe it is something you feel you've been inspired by, or you're creating your own version of whatever story you've seen or heard in other places. Even going as far as journaling. Now, journaling is an everyday thing for me. I write notes, I write a lot of ideas, I write my feelings, and I write my thoughts. To get that down on paper can better help you organise what's going on in that very large filing cabinet of your mind, and therefore keep it better organised, and with that, keep your imagination sharp. So, since I've got just a little bit of time left, let's take this time to sit here calmly with our eyes closed, taking notice of our breathing. Clear the mind of things that may have been bothering you today. Instead, visualise how you intend to make tomorrow even better. So in closing, your intuition, your gut, your imagination, they affect all areas of your life, such as money, relationships, parenting, exercise, eating habits, and self-confidence. This is why I specialise in imagination and intuition coaching. It applies to all areas of our life. Thank you.